Okay, welcome everybody. Welcome, Jonno. If you can hear us, let me know in the chat, please. This is going to be a very quick one tonight. We're just going to go over the NBA service, a couple of past results. Jonno's going to look at some stats, and that's it really. Just some frequently asked questions that we always get as well. So we'll get started first with the past NBA results. Last season, which was very good, we ended up doing 422 bets. We turned over 720 units, and the average unit size was 1.7 units per bet. The bets range from 0.5 to 5.5 units, and there were 45 bets, so around 10% that were 3 units or greater. So most bets are in that 1 to 2 unit range. Last season's performance after all that was 62.438 units profit at 8.7%. All time on the Dailyprofit site, and Sport Punter has been running this model for many years before that, and had always been making profits. But just for Dailyprofit, we've had 2,469 bets. We've turned over 26,845 units. No, it should have been 2,685 units. Profit of 243.67 units at 9.1%. The largest drawdown, of course, has been 25 units. So a 50-unit bank should be safe, but I'll talk about bank sizing a bit later on in the frequently asked questions. In an earlier video Jonno and I did, we looked at the multis, and they actually returned 43% ROI at pinnacle odds. And of course, you're not always going to be able to put the best odds into a multi, depending where you bet. But even half of that is going to be amazing. So this season, I'll be betting the totals, but also doing multis. Okay, and I just want to say that past performance is no indication of future performance. We've seen that with the NFL. While I feel, and Jonno feels, that this is an amazing model, over any one season, we could make a loss. So every season we're placing between 400 and 500 bets, and variance can still play its part there. We have, at the moment, 7 spots open until we lock it out at 140 members, and then it'll be 1 out, 1 in. So I'll have a mailing list for people that still want to join, and that's $199 Aussie per month for the service. Okay, quickly, the frequently asked questions, and this is 2 minutes. So upload time is 6 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time every single day. Most members are at the site at 5:59, clicking refresh. Chris, who is a member, has worked hard on getting the site ready for the crush of people refreshing. So unlike past years, it should be able to handle everyone there, but we'll see in the first few days what happens there. Odds recording, we just record at the pinnacle price at time of release. Now, I'm going to talk about how to get the best odds. So what we see every year is people just at Sport Market or Pinnacle crushing it as soon as it comes. So if I was to be following this service and not getting the bets earlier, what I would be doing is 10 minutes beforehand looking at all the Aussie books, if I'm not limited, and writing down the top 1 and 2 books for each over and each under on each game. And then when the bets come up, I'll be able to quickly go to that book and place the bet. And you're going to end up getting not only better odds, but sometimes half a total point better. I looked last year, and Tab, Sportsbet, Ladbrokes and Neds were actually offering better totals. So if you do have access to those Aussie books, that's what you should be doing. There's also Five Dimes and BetChris and those other sort of books if you can get them. And now there's a lot of Bitcoin books that mimic Pinnacle prices or a couple of cents lower. So instead of trying to get on when everyone else is at the same bookie, your best bet is to go elsewhere where no one is. And you might get 1 or 2 cent worse than recorded odds, but you're going to definitely get them. It's going to be less hassle. So that's what I would recommend. Okay. People also ask bank size. And as I said before, 50 unit banks, okay, but risky. We always recommend a 100 unit bank combined for all the sports. And we'll have NFL on at the same time as NBA. And then AFL and NRL will kick in later on. So it's up to you. 50 units if you're risk averse, you can deal with losing your bank because it can happen. 100 units if you don't want any risk, you're going to be pretty safe with that. So that's pretty much all the frequently asked questions we get. We have a couple of questions from members that we'll answer throughout this. But I'm going to put you on to Jonno, and he's going to talk about a bit of the data that he's been looking at, and then we'll answer the questions. All right, Jonno.
All right, how are you going? I've got some really good news, really interesting news with the NBA. And I'm just going to be looking at totals today. We'll look at line bets later, but I'll share my screen. Really interesting to note the average regular season total score over time. So as you can see on the screen, from about 2005 to 2012, it's pretty consistent, around about up and down a little bit, but around about 197 average. And then from about 2012 onwards, it has just shot up. So it's actually, I think last year was 24 average as well. So yeah, that's very interesting. But what is also interesting is the preseason. So this is a slightly different graph. The preseason scores have done the same thing. They've stayed at level and they've gone up. It's a slight dip in the very last one. This is this year so far. That includes today's scores. About 5 points less than what it was previously, the preseason. It's a shorter preseason this year, of course. And there's also a few irregularities too. Like I know that LA Lakers have played twice so far in the preseason, and both times their two stars, LeBron James and Anthony, didn't play in both of them. So I think they scored about 90 points one game, about 130 the next. But either way, the preseason scores measured actually correlates quite well with the regular season scores. And if we look at, don't know too much, this is a difference between the regular season totals and the preseason totals. And what you can find is that there's no real pattern. There's no real pattern that goes straight across. In other words, that means that, once again, that the preseason scores quite correlate with the regular season scores. But the other thing to notice is that these are probably on average about 5 to 6 points. So what that means is, in the regular season, is about 5 or 6 more points than the preseason. And that occurs probably for a number of different reasons. One, as I said before, players often rested preseason. Often preseason, they give a lot of the extended bench more game time. So you will see scores increase. So I'm pretty confident. If you go back to this NBA preseason scores, is that I don't think the scores will decrease or increase much this year. I think if we can put that up a little bit on the final year to be about the same as the previous 2 years, I think that's what we'll probably find. Now, the last piece of information, I've been doing a lot of player data, and I have had a lot of player data in the model for a long time, but I haven't used it, and the reason is because, why break a good model? But with COVID hitting, and we've seen in the NFL that a lot of players have been rested or have been hit with COVID or something else, so there's going to be a lot of times when teams might change who's going on the court quite a bit. So I think it'd be very important, especially this year, to look at player data. And I'll just give you some information here about these players, not these guys. My top 5, and I've got value values for these. These aren't just names I've picked out of the hat. These were the top 5 values of players who are important to a team to get a high score. So obviously in the middle here you've got Stephen Curry from Golden State. Everyone sort of knows who he is. Played 5 games last year. Without him, Golden State are a lot worse a team. Everyone knows that he's very high scoring, but little people don't know that it's not just about how high scoring you are, it's how defensive you are. Great, perhaps. It's okay. But another one here, Trae Young. I never knew who this guy is, so I just did a research on him. He scores very well. He's only 6'1", and he's a bit of a pushover, so it seems. If you do a Google search for Trae Young defense, these are the top 3 hits, and I'll just read them out to you because it's kind of funny. Top 3 things is Trae Young really that bad on defense? The second one is exposing the NBA's worst defender at every position. And the third one is sort of kind of positive. It says Trae's defense, while it's horrible, is still overblown. So just trying to whatever. So here you've got a player who scores really well and doesn't defend that great. So if he was missing from that team, obviously you'd expect the team totals to come down quite a lot. And also you've got over here, you've got Bradley as well. On the other side here, we've got Rudy Gobert, who is the complete opposite. Here are people who do score okay, but the defense is really, really good. So if they were missing from those teams, we'd expect the actual tricks. Okay, even though they're really good players. Rudy Gobert, he won the All-Australian, he was in the All-Australian.
Isn't he French?
All-NBA defensive team.
Isn't it Gobert?
Correct. All-NBA, he's 2 times Defensive Player of the Year and 4 times First Defensive Player. So he's obviously very, very good. Isaac Bonga, I presume that's how you pronounce it, German dude. He's 6'8", which is pretty good for a point guard. He played 66 games last year. For 90, he scored 5 points a game. So he's a very, very defensive player. Without him, the possible Washington's team scores will go up as well. And there are a few other guys there I mentioned. But there's one guy here I'll put in here now. Steve, I'll get you to pronounce this guy's name. Is that all right? Because you're a European, so he's...
Giannis Antetokounmpo? I don't know.
Yeah, that would do. Now, he won the Defensive Player of the Year as well. But I had him only just out of this league. So if he wasn't playing, I'd expect scores to actually decrease. And even though he won the NBA Defensive Player of the Year, that's because he's also, as a lot of people know, very good on. So I'm really excited by this. I think initially we're going to probably have 2 sets of probabilities. 2 sets of probabilities per game. It will be really interesting to see when they match up. So if there's an under on one or there's an under another. When they don't match up, perhaps it's because one of the big name players is out. And I'm going to be looking. I've only just sort of done this stuff the last couple of days, so I haven't had a great chance to it. Well, I'm going to be looking at putting this into a model, seeing how well it was done year by year. Of course, using the holdout samples just not to bias results, and hopefully it would be an even improved model. Now, of course, we have to predict what the starting 5 are, or even the starting lineup. I can do that. I've got some really good sources to find that as well. So hopefully we'll find that we'll have some good results again, and perhaps even better. The initial analysis of my player ratings, they blew my head away. I didn't expect it to be that good, and they were. But I'll have more on that coming up on the website, and I think Steve will put it up somewhere, and we'll have that information sent out about how good the player-based model goes as compared to the...
Okay, so by the start of the season, which is next week, we'll know which model we're using? That's the question everyone wants to know.
There's nothing wrong with using a team-based model, especially at the start. It's been amazing at the start over the last few years. I remember last year and even the year before that, we were hitting we're hitting like 4 out of 5 bets or something like that. There were several days I think we got like 5 in a row or something.
Yep. Well, we had a heap of 100% days. That's what led me to asking you about multis.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, we did talk about multis the other day. So yeah, you can get off that screen. We've seen all those enough players. So So look, I think the next couple of days I'm more than happy for people to just look at the team-based model to start off with. I think there's another reason also is that the team-based model seems to do really well at the start and fades away throughout the year. When I say fades, I don't mean it loses money. It still makes a lot of money,
the returns
but not as much as the start. I think a lot of that. I think there's a question.
Yeah.
Right?
So actually, we'll start with one by Rob, who asked, "How will COVID affect results? Does the system adapt to player changes?" And I guess you've gone over that with the player-based model, but I'm guessing during the season, It looks like that some players might have to be out for a couple of weeks or whatever. So if we're on a team-based model and say LeBron goes out, would we move that to the player-based model for those bets or something like that?
Good question. I'm hoping that the player-based model. What I'm doing with the player-based model, it's not a completely independent model from the team. It's just adding new variables on top of the team-based model.
Okay. So it's a blended model. Is it a blended model?
It's a blended model, so it should be more accurate. I've done the scientific studies and the p-values and significance values, etc., so that it's really, really a lot better. So it should be more accurate. I'll go back through all the past data and do analysis as if like we're betting live over the last few years, and then see how it goes. But it definitely should be more accurate, because I think what we found last year, I remember when Stephen Curry was out and also Durant as well, I think it suggested some big overbets
Golden State,
on Golden State. Yeah, because obviously Stephen Curry's a big player there. I don't remember how that went. Maybe we got lucky. I'm not sure. But either way, the overlays were probably exaggerated a little bit just because Stephen Curry wasn't there. So hopefully in a player-based model type of scenario, that would decrease in relation to the fact that Stephen's there or LeBron James is out.
Yep. All right. So back to that other question. Yes, it was Stu, and he asked, "I understand the totals models work really well in the first couple of months of each season and then drops off. That seems weird. Why do you think that is?"
One, I think, is that we had a look at some of the preseason data that I showed you before. One is that I can really analyse the preseason data really well. There's less preseason this year. I think from memory, if you remind me, last year or the year before like that, I expected totals to be about 5 or 6 points more than the year before, and that was because of all the what was happening
and we had under bets, and nearly, I would say 90% of bets were under bets early on.
Yeah, from memory, we bet it over. We did.
I might have been. Yes, you're right.
Yeah, the market caught up, and then the odds went up too high, and then we had underbets.
That's right.
Too, because there was an over-exaggeration from the market. So it was just incredible. It's great to watch. I believe that my analysis of the preseason is very valuable in the first few weeks. And then, obviously, a lot of people, some professional punters don't like to bet in the first couple of weeks either. They like to see what happens first and stuff like that. Because I think that's a prime place to bet. If you've got the advantage, you can prove it.
And it's been year after year.
So, year after year. So I think also bookmakers' odds will get slightly more accurate as the year progresses, as they start to understand how teams are going and how players are going. That's just natural. So therefore, our edge isn't quite as big in the second half of the year.
And I can just chuck up let me see if we can see this. I'll get this up. So this is a graph of daily profit results, NBA totals, and you do see at the start of each year, there's a big jump. The second year here in 16-17, the model was just winning every single week. But in every other year, you see a massive jump at the start. That's the first 2 to 4 weeks. And then sometimes it dips and then goes back up in the playoffs. But yeah, it's repeating every single season. And even in the 20s, so the 1920 season, you see at the end here, there's that break for COVID. And then again, the restart of the season, you see the model performed amazingly once again. So it's every restart that it seems to do that. There's a couple of questions in the live chat. So Whirlpool Reed asked, do you have a special offer only for NBA, or did you ever consider? Because I'm not interested in rugby, NFL, Aussie rules. Yep, you can buy the NBA model just by itself for the exact same price of 199 Australian dollars. We just put them all as a package just to make things simple, but the NBA has been the king, and it's staying at 199 there. Jack Daniels asks, is it just line bets and totals? Any futures? It's just totals we're going to give. Jonno, do you want to give head-to-head and line bets? They haven't been profitable, I don't think, so that's why we've always stuck to totals.
Yeah, I'll be giving them. Whether or not you decide to bet them or not, that's up to you. They haven't been profitable. I can't remember if they were breaking even or losing. But hopefully with some new player data in there, it might improve the situation.
So we'll give them on a separate page on the site once you're logged in. So we'll have that data for you. But it is the NBA totals that have returned amazing over the years. So just stick to that, I would say.
Yeah, so that's right. As far as futures goes, futures could be really good, but it's like one horse race.
I lock up your money for that long.
You spend a lot of money analysing one horse race that ties up all your money for 6 months. I'm not 100% sure if it's the greatest way to bet futures, but each to their own. Yep.
There was one final question. Matthias, he said, I live in Brazil and will be placing bets 3 to 5 hours later. Will there be odds slippage? Is there still value? And one of our other members actually answered in the comments before, and that was Hariba, and he actually tracked just when the COVID restart happened for maybe a month or two, and he tracked bets at 6 a.m. Aussie time, so this is 12 hours after we released, and what he found, the official results during that period had a loss of 5.24 units at negative 1.4, but the 12 hours, so the 6 a.m., if you were betting then, you would have lost 41.82 units at almost 5% ROI. So it shows we continue to always beat the closing line. You need to be there pretty damn close to release time and betting them straight away, because the odds, the totals just keep coming in. And then it looks like even a few hours before the games, we've absolutely smashed them. So if you're living in a country that you can't get up at that time, the service just isn't going to work for you. Let me see if we have any other questions.
Good on Hariba too. Like, there's a name that brings back the years. He's been following us for 15 years.
Yes,
I think,
he has.
As a loyal person, and it just shows he's not a bandwagon jumper, jumping up and down. He's followed us.
Yeah,
for a long
this
time.
year he actually skipped. I think he skipped the first part of the NBA season or the NFL. I can't remember. And when he came back, the NFL went downhill. So he's probably learned his lesson there. I think that's it. Did you want to add anything else?
Nah, I'm good, thanks. I'm good.
All right, so we have those 7 spots open. Just head to dailyprofit.com.au. If you have any other questions, just contact me on the site. And yeah, looking forward to another NBA season, and hopefully we can get off to as good as a start as every other year. All right, Jonno, make sure you do a good job, and we'll see you again soon.
All right, see you guys.